Hi you guys, my name is Olivia. Welcome to my channel. I share mommyhood things and homeschooling things and lifestyle things. Today I am sharing with you guys the inside portions of the Purposeful Design language arts curriculum that I did with my second grade daughter this last year. I had no intention of doing this video isolated from the other video. If you are jumping in right now and it almost seems like you're missing information, it's because you are. I had every intention of doing this flip through with the hands-on materials, as well as looking inside at how to navigate the online portion of it, all in one video with my review. So the reason this one seems as if it's lacking necessary information is because the rest of the information is in my other video, which I'm gonna link above. I'm also gonna link down below. I'm uploading these two videos together. I wound up realizing this curriculum was going to take multiple videos because it's such a comprehensive curriculum, and I talk a lot and I share a lot, and those two things combined means that a review and flip through just was not going to work with this specific curriculum. So if you're wanting all of my thoughts and how we made this work for us, what pieces we used, what pieces we didn't use, if I'm happy with the curriculum, if I'm going to be using the curriculum in the future, if I recommend the curriculum, all of that information is going to be in the other video. And when I recorded the inside flip through pieces of the actual materials, at that time I had assumed both of these videos were going to be like all in one. So if some of the details in that video make it seem as if like I'm pointing things out or connecting things to a review portion, it's because I am, and they were all supposed to be all in one. So order wise, I recommend watching that other video first and then watching this video, but the videos are connected and I'm sorry to have had to do it this way. All right, I'm going to show you all of that inside material and resources right now. All right, so here is the teacher edition. It does come with this big spiral. The top is kind of like a soft hardcover and the back is really, really firm, which is great. I will say these pages are like, they're like magazine kind of material, and they have ripped even when I've tried to be very, very, very soft along the top of the spiral. I don't know if they could have made it with any other kinds of paper that necessarily would have been better, but that is something that I run into. Okay, so we're gonna open the front page, and it gives you a full table of contents about everything that you're gonna go into for each one of the components. Let me zoom in here just a little bit. So the book is separated into units and then chapters and then days. So Unit A is each unit is going to be 3 chapters long. At the end of each unit, there is a little bit of a unit review that goes over the different concepts that you learned. It tells you ahead of time everything that you're going to learn for each one of the components. So for phonics, this is what you're going over for phonics, etc. So it gives you a heads up, a glance at what you're going to be covering for each of the chapters. There are 33 chapters for the language arts curriculum, and each one of the chapters is split into 5 different lessons, which kind of mimics like a 5-day work week. If you're wanting to get an idea or a glance at all of the different read alouds, this is going to be the literature portion of it. And there are mini literature guides that go along with each of these, but this for each chapter lines out what the book is going to look like, and it gives you a snippet of what the layout for the literature guide is going to look like. I'll show you how to find those in the back of this book as well. These are the readers, the list of readers that goes along with the curriculum if you're looking for the phonetic reading aloud component that goes along with the curriculum. There is a foreword, and then the preface here, it kind of gives a little bit of their philosophy, and this part I love. We've not missed the eternal significance of the study of language or words. Jesus Christ is the Word of God. The Bible is God's word for us, for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that we might be fully equipped for every good work. And it just gives a little bit more of the philosophy behind it here. Okay, so this is essentially going to be, when you open up your book, this is the spread that you're going to see. And for all of your lessons. So this essentially is kind of like a key that's telling you what each portion means and how to navigate it. I know you can't see all of it all at once. I'll just kind of move the book around as I feel like something's necessary to show you guys, but I am curious about why they gave this as an example of a layout, because typically we never ever get this worldview. This is very few and far in between. Do they include the worldview piece right here? It almost always starts with reading, and phonics is actually up here. So specifically, which I think is pretty helpful to look at, because it is a lot to look at and figure out. But for me, was taking advantage of the sidebars over here that kind of give you your prep and what to expect. So these are all of the materials and any of the prep, as you can see right here, that you're going to need to do for this specific lesson. It does have extensions for kiddos who could use a little bit more. What you see right here in bold, the BLM and then the numbers and then this title right here, this is an example of one of the printouts that I was mentioning earlier in the review. There are lots and lots of printouts, and this one specifically stands for Black Line Master. And then this is the chapter. The number after the decimal stands for which one of the 5 lessons is included in that chapter. And then this is the title for this specific printout. I will also give you a look on the computer as of what the online component looks like and how to navigate that and find them. But this is what it means when you see this. You will also see this repeated in the lesson itself. You don't have to remember everything that was on the preparation piece. Another piece that you're going to see is it's going to say DM and then the same sort of situation at the end. That stands for Digital Masters. There's a Black Line Masters file, and then there's the Digital Masters file. I'm going to zoom back out again. You're going to find those at the link that's underneath this Sharpie, and that's where you can download all of them. I just saved the entire folder, and I pull from the folder on my computer so I don't have to look it up on the website all of the time. So this is just some more explanation of what each one of the components means and how to utilize that in your lesson. If you are at all curious about the scope and sequence of the curriculum, this lines out for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, what you're going to be looking at for all of the components. So concepts about print and print awareness, phonemic awareness, phonics skills, fluency, spelling and comprehension skills and strategies. Then under reading and reading literature, literary and text elements. So I do wish that I had used this as the literature guide, and I might even use these read alouds for her 3rd grade year next year, because these are so nice. As you can see, it does so much as far as with the literary and text elements, going over things like character development, descriptive and figurative language, illustrations, photographs, graphics, plot development, theme and setting. These are so helpful to start and learn. I have not noticed that they use as much of this in the Memoria Press that I have been using for a couple years. I do love their read alouds. I love their guides, but it does not go as in-depth here. The darkened out spaces, this means that it is introduced or practiced, and the X portion means that there's an assessment that goes along with it. So there's not a whole lot of assessment. It's just introduction and exposure to these sorts of questions that go along with the read alouds, which I just love so much. If it's completely blank, it just means that it's not introduced at all in that level. There's some nonfiction work, poetry work. This is all of your language, like your grammar here, and then what it goes into for writing. So as you can see, especially for 2nd grade, which is the only level that we've used for this curriculum, it covers a whole lot. There's more, a bunch of stuff for writing. This is all still writing. And this is writing about reading. Even in kindergarten, it goes over something. So, okay, it gives you the entire list of grade 2, the words. And then it tells you what units you're gonna find them in. It just gives them in alphabetical order. And then these are the high frequency words. These are words that they introduce that don't necessarily go along with the spelling or phonetic rule that they're going over for the lesson, but these are words that you run into often, especially at this grade level, and so they give it to you as a spelling word because it's something that you're being exposed to so much that they think it's helpful for you to have that memorized and is in your arsenal at this age. And then these go along with the leveled readers, the read alouds. Again, I don't have any exposure to those or experience with those. And these are the oral vocabulary, so these go along with the lessons. There's an oral vocabulary that I will show you how it works. Okay, so this spread is the unit spread. This is unit A, and it tells you it's chapters 1 through 3. It tells you the theme for the unit, and then the different foundational strands for each one of the chapters. This is the word list for the high frequency decodable words. So these are like your spelling situation, and then some different spelling words. Okay. I'm gonna flip further into closer to where we're actually at right now. So we just started chapter 22. So for here in chapter 22, these are the different foundational strands that we're going over for each one of the chapters. And then these are the word lists for the different pieces that go along with that. The next spread is all of the prep. If you want prep at a glance, all at once for the unit, it goes really in depth here, but it kind of gives you everything. So these are going to be your literature read alouds. It talks about the different objectives for each one of the components, all of the different skills you're going to be going over. It does, if you did purchase the language arts kit that this company offers to go along with their programs, then it tells you which one of the materials to pull out for the kit. And these are additional materials for each one of the chapters for the different activities that go into those chapters themselves. And then here is a printout if you're wanting to just have a glance or know all at once everything it's going to expect you to print from the Black Line Masters and the Digital Masters. It's all here. So here's an actual spread of the lesson set up. Again, if you're wanting to know everything that goes along with what each portion means, then if you're going to be using this, I would definitely refer back to that, essentially that key at the very beginning of the book. But this is the way that it's spread out. It starts with reading, and then it goes into literature, and then the language and writing portions of the lesson. It does have you utilizing a lot of writing things on the board, asking things aloud for the students to repeat back to you. At this point, this is chapter 22. This is the 4th lesson of the week, and there are 5 lessons for each one of the chapters. So essentially it's spread out like a 5-day work week. We do 4-day work weeks, so I condense or I omit where I feel like it's necessary. Again, over here, here's your prep for this lesson specifically. Extensions, again, if you want to work a little bit longer on a topic, it gives a way to do that over here. This also gives you an example of enrichment, and this is for students who can go a little bit further and do things maybe with a little bit more rigor, or introduce a concept that makes it a little bit more challenging. You can do the enrichment portion. Down here, this is the spread you're gonna find exactly that aligns with the student notebook. So let me show you the student notebook real fast. All right, so here's what we're gonna see for 22.4. And at a certain chapter, they start putting in these little extra practice keys. So it's a front and back for one day, and this is exactly what your kiddo is gonna see, including the answers. So you can see it's in color. This is almost like thicker newspaper material. It's not the same like slippery material as this. It doesn't have too much on it for one day, but it does emphasize everything that you were learning for that day in the lesson. It's just a quick way to get in some practice solo with what you learned, even though you're working a lot one-on-one with the teacher. At a certain point, they start inserting these extra practices. That's just one more extra piece of the different topics that you are learning, and that's going to be on this practice. This was not explained explicitly to me, so I realized that this is kind of how it goes into there, and it will tell you for each day over here which lesson, if it goes along with the 2nd, the 4th, the 5th, etc. for the chapter. And the answers for those are over here in the practice answer key in the red. The entire book is set up that same way. You're going to navigate it the exact same way the entire year here. So this is the lesson spread. I'm going to flip to the back of the book now, where there's more of your teacher resources back here. So this is the spelling for the weeks. It's included back here, and it's by chapter here. It gives you some directions on how to give the pretest. If you're not familiar with it, we just kind of followed along with what we were used to when we were learning the spelling when we were doing Logic of English. There are printouts that you can get that you can give the spelling test on there. I can't remember if they're in the black line or if they're in the Digital Masters, but you can print those out and use those. Instead, I just got a wide ruled composition notebook for my kiddo, and she says she does not mind that I show you her thing. So she happened to get 100% the very first day. So lesson 1 of the chapter, it gives the spelling words, and that's when you would give your pretest. If she took the pretest and she got 100%, I don't have her do the actual chapter test at the end of the chapter because she doesn't need to be tested twice. But there are times that she needs some practice with the spelling words, and that's when I will have her do the initial test. If she gets some wrong, then at the end of that chapter, I do give her the final test. That is where we keep our collection of the spelling tests. It tells you your word here. So for chapter 2, for each of the chapters, I just tell her how many to make a line for, to number out. As you go on in the work though, actually, it does get down to 18 words at some point. So it starts with 12 and then it gradually goes to 14, 16, 18. It gives the word in a sentence, and then you would repeat the sentence again, and I just sound it out the way that we were taught to sound out phonograms in Logic of English. So that's how I give the spelling tests. And then if you did want to go more than just giving the spelling tests and have that as practice with the phonics that you're doing, that's when I got the spelling component. Oops, I didn't realize I was showing you guys. Did I show you her name in here too? One second. No, her name is not on here. Okay. So for here, she loves writing her name at the top of everything, so I can't show you the top. But there are some different activities, and they differ with each one of the chapters. So you're not always going to run into the exact same activities, except for the spelling review, which is the 4th day of the lesson. They always do this, but otherwise it's different sorts of activities to utilize the spelling words in different sorts of ways. And then you can use the spelling review if you want to in here instead of doing it in a notebook. They offer that to you. All right, so I'm going to move on from the spelling. The next portion of it are the spelling answer keys that go along with the spelling workbook. So it will lay it out for you by chapter. So you're gonna have 33 pages of that. Okay, here are the literature guides. And so you're gonna flip the page. It gives you a little bit of an overview of what to expect. And then this is the way that they are set up. It tells you what chapter the literature guide goes along with. The book is what you're gonna see written vertically like this along the side that goes along with each chapter. It gives you some prep for the chapter. And this is where a lot of your poetry work is going to be too, if you are wanting to introduce poetry or work with poetry for your kiddo. And then it gives you for each one of the lessons, so say this is lesson 1.1, this is the work that you would do for that. Lesson 2, this is the work you would do for that. Lesson 3, etc., all of the way across. And then you're gonna see the next chapter for the next chapter's literature guide and the book that it goes along with. In the back, you're going to find your index, and that really wraps up this piece. I do want to share how we do writing. So again, I mentioned that we do not include writing for every week. I kind of see what it is, and then I decide if we're gonna fit it in that week. Sometimes we've gone back when we've had extra time to fit in writing and done past ones, etc. But I got her, again, another composition notebook. So what I do in here is I just write the directions of what they were wanting me to tell the kiddo to do. So here, write your own riddle. Choose a food and fill in the blanks with an adjective. So this was the example riddle. All right, so we learned some different things like acrostic poems. I'm bouncing around here because she put her name on a lot of these papers, and so I'm just trying to find you the ones that I can share with you. Choose an autumn event from brainstorming, because we were going through brainstorming. Write a first draft of your acrostic poem. So then I had her do that, and we did brainstorm. Is it over here? Some different autumn things. Oh yeah, so here was our brainstorming with it. This was the second piece to this writing component. And then I had her do her acrostic poem and draw her little pictures. This one was really fun. This was an example of the stories that they had us do. So there was this box that had these fantastical sort of prompts on them that were really short, and then you flip the box up and whatever it landed on, that was the one that you wrote your little story, but it helped kind of guide you through. And we had learned how to write paragraphs and what was included in paragraphs, and so it only expected 2 paragraphs. So she had a first draft, and then this was her story for her final draft. There are all sorts of different really fun prompts that we did in here. This was when we were working on our how-to paragraph. This is an example of how to write a sensational, attention-grabbing article on an event. And it did ask you to do one from a story from the Bible. And so it was the news article, and this was the organizer, and then she put it through in here and wrote. And then this is our final draft. So I have her keep it in here, and I like the wide ruled, but then also the space at the top to include pictures. She often wants to include a picture, so this seems just big enough to fit everything that we're gonna wind up using in here. So that was a good call there.
So I'm going to just give you a little bit of a glimpse of how I navigate the online portions. So this is the digital masters file, and this is the blackline masters file. As you can see, there's 641 pieces to the blackline and 282 for the digital masters. So I did not print everything out all at once and just prep that way, bind it, put it into file like a folder or anything. I just go through for the day what it is that I'm going to be covering and teaching that day, and then I come in here and I print it off. So it literally gives you directions on how to use this up here. I'm going to be honest, and I just didn't even think to read this part, and I used to just scroll and scroll and scroll until I got to what I wanted. These are hyperlinks. So welcome to my brain. That was my fault. I'm sure all of you would have known that these are hyperlinks or have read the directions that told you exactly that they are hyperlinks. All right, so in that flip through of the actual hard copy resources, I showed that we were in chapter 22. So I'm going to just open some of these chapter 22 options. In the review video, I was talking about how a lot of the printouts are for vocabulary. And so this is an example of the vocabulary display. So this is the vocabulary word. It gives a visual picture, and then it says your word in a sentence. And there are a couple of these for each of the chapters. And so we don't participate really in the vocabulary. I don't print these out and put them up, but I do like that they have this as an option. I do have to say I appreciate how visual and bright all of these displays are, because I do feel as if that they are engaging for kiddos of this age. And there have been some really nice pictures that we have ran into with some of the printouts that we've used. Same thing goes for the Blackline Masters. These are hyperlinks. And you can scroll down here. We're going to go to chapter 22. I wanted to show you, so in the video I was talking about how you don't have to have your own spelling notebook like we do, the composition notebook that we keep all of our spelling pieces in, because they do offer in the printouts these pieces here for spelling and your spelling tests. So you can utilize these and just keep your collection of spelling words. These printouts, something like this goes along with the writing component of the lesson for the day, and so I would print this out and I would cut it down to size and then paste it directly into our writing workbook, and then have my daughter write on it directly. The composition notebooks I have found are smaller than the like 8 by 11 that these will print out in. So this is a MacBook Air, so I don't know how it is if you are using a Windows program, but I go here to selection in preview. And okay, so we have got selection and preview, and then for preview, instead of scale to fit, you can just press scale. And I find that for those little composition notebooks that 80% usually fits inside of them better. I would mess around with it to whatever you need it to be for you. All right, so then I would press print there. All right, something else that I wanted to mention here is that they also give answer keys. So for every sheet that you're going to give to your child and have them fill out, they will give you the answer key for it as well. These are all hyperlinks within the page themselves. So this is the pieces to the game. If I wanted the answer key to the game, I would press answer key and it would bring me here. If I didn't want to do it that way, if you just hover over this, this also tells you which page the answer key is. That happens, we're on page 401 right now. It just happens to be the next one. Here's another example. So this would be the sheet that you would print out for your child to work on. And then this is the answer key for the parent to have the answers and grade it if you are grading it. Also, what I wanted to show you is that this is also a hyperlink. This brings you back to the table of contents. So if I click this, it's going to bring me back to the table of contents where I would find the chapter 22 things. So it's really easy to navigate and very straightforward.
All right, you guys, those are the inside portions, the look-throughs of this curriculum. If you have not yet listened to the review portion of it, it's in the other video that I linked both above and down below in the description box. And there is so much more information on this curriculum, how I used it, what pieces I love, what pieces I don't love, if I recommend the curriculum, if I'm going to use it again, all of that in the review portion of the video. I do plan on having a follow along as I do a lesson with my second grader, and I will do that sometime soon. That will be its own video all on its own also. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys next time.